What would you do if you spent 7 years getting up at 4:30 in the morning, driving through blizzards before the sun came up, keeping 73 families safe through winters that bury cars in minutes, and then one day someone handed you a $500 fine for it? Not a thank you, not a conversation, a fine. With photos, time-stamped, like they'd been watching and waiting for the right moment to use it. That happened to me, and what I did next, what I didn't do actually, ended up costing the person who fined me a whole lot more than $500. In money, in reputation, and in ways she never saw coming. My name is Dalton Reeves. I'm 52 years old. Third-generation heavy equipment operator. 30 years moving dirt and snow in the Colorado Rockies. And this is the story of how a corrupt HOA president, her underqualified nephew, and one very bad blizzard taught an entire mountain community what happens when you mistake the person doing the work for someone who doesn't understand their own power. Let me give you the setup because context matters. My wife Marcy teaches 4th grade. Our 2 kids live out of state. Phoenix and Seattle, both places where winter means a light jacket and people lose their minds over a half-inch of sleet. 8 years ago, we bought into Ridgecrest HOA, 73 homes at 9,200 feet elevation in a town most people have never heard of called Pinewood Summit, Colorado. The views are unbelievable. Elk in your backyard. Stars so bright you can actually read by them on a clear night. The trade-off: 1 road in and 1 road out. 2.3 miles of steep switchbacks. Private property. No county maintenance. The HOA owns it. And when you're getting 340 inches of snow between November and April, maintenance means plowing. Constantly, without exception. Our monthly dues were $450. Steep, but it covered road maintenance, snow removal, insurance, reserves. The old board president was a man named Bill Hicks, retired firefighter, the kind of guy whose whole philosophy was we take care of each other up here because nobody else will. I liked Bill. My first winter, I watched the contracted plow company take 6 hours and charge $1,200 for a moderate storm. I own the equipment. I have the license and the insurance. So I went to Bill and offered him a deal. I'd plow for free early mornings before work, and the HOA could drop the outside contractor. Bill looked at me like I'd handed him a winning lottery ticket. For 7 years, that's exactly what I did. 4:30 in the morning, every storm, my F450 with the 10-foot blade clearing that road. The HOA saved $18,000. I never sent them an invoice, never asked for gas money. It was just what you do when you live somewhere like this. Then, 14 months ago, everything changed. Bill's wife got cancer. They moved to Grand Junction. Bill resigned. And into that vacancy walked Vivian Ashford Crane. Vivian was 59. Retired pharmaceutical sales. Relocated from Connecticut, moved to Colorado for the mountain lifestyle but got furious every time the mountain actually had the nerve to inconvenience her. Perfect blonde highlights. A spotless white Lexus SUV. Patagonia vests that probably cost more than my truck. She ran for president on the pitch of professionalizing our community standards, and she won by 4 votes. I should have seen what was coming. Her first meeting, she showed up with a color-coded binder and quoted Robert's Rules of Order like a prosecuting attorney. Her vanilla perfume cut through the stale, burnt coffee smell of that community center and somehow made everything worse. She announced that the HOA needed to address liability exposure regarding unregulated volunteer services. She meant me. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. Trevor Kowalski, one of the old-timers, spoke up. Dalton's been plowing 7 years. Licensed, insured, never a problem. Vivian smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Capability isn't accountability. We need professionals. Rosa Burke, 78 years old and hating every second of confrontation, said, "He is a professional. Then he can bid for the contract like anyone else." She called for a vote. Her 3 newly arrived allies backed her. 4-3. 7 years of showing up for my neighbors just became unregulated. I walked out into the November cold. The gravel crunched under my boots. I could already smell the storm coming in the air, that particular sharpness you learn to read after 30 years in the mountains. Marcy came up beside me. "She's going to be a problem." "Yeah," I said. 2 weeks later I got the letter. Formal HOA notice. Cease all unauthorized snow removal operations immediately. Still expected to pay full dues. No replacement contractor hired yet. Vivian was reviewing bids. I read it twice. Set it on the kitchen counter. What are you going to do? Marcy asked. Follow the rules, I said. Exactly. January 4th. The kind of storm that makes you respect the mountains whether you want to or not. Snow started around 11 at night. By 4 in the morning, when I'd normally be firing up the plow, 22 inches had already fallen. I stood at my kitchen window with coffee, watching flakes come down in the glow of my porch light, and I did absolutely nothing. Marcy came up behind me. You're really not going out? Nope. Following the rules. The coffee tasted better than usual that morning. Funny how spite improves the flavor of things. By 7, the main road was buried. My neighbor Marcus Flynn, 74 years old, diabetic on dialysis twice a week, stood in his driveway staring at an impassable white wall. His truck wasn't going anywhere. My phone started ringing. Amanda Schuster, young mom with kids who needed to catch the school bus. Rosa. Trevor. 14 calls by 9 in the morning. Same answer every time. I can't help. HOA rules. Call Vivian. But watching Marcus standing there in the cold, his breath fogging, looking defeated, that broke something in me. Old habits die hard. I fired up the plow and made one pass. 45 minutes. Single lane cleared. Road safe. I thought that would be the end of it. January 8th certified letter. The mail carrier, Joel, 20 years up here, gave me a look when he handed it over that said he already knew what was inside. I opened it at my kitchen table. Notice of violation and fine. Unauthorized equipment operation. Photographic evidence. Non-regulation track patterns. Fine. $500. 3 photos attached. My plow tracks from different angles. Timestamped. Someone had been watching. Documenting. Waiting. Marcy read it over my shoulder. They fined you $500 for helping people. Apparently. I set it down. The paper had that expensive weight to it, the kind Vivian would choose. Even her violations had production value. Now here's where the story takes a turn. Because what happened next is not what most people would have done. I called an emergency board meeting. Showed up January 11th with a folder full of documentation. Commercial liability insurance, $2 million in coverage. My Colorado contractor's license. 7 years of fuel receipts totaling $14,000 I had spent maintaining their road. I presented everything calmly and asked the board to either rescind the fine or reimburse me for services rendered. Vivian's smile was thin as paper. Your vigilante snow removal was never requested, Mr. Reeves. The fine stands. And I'm pleased to announce we've hired Cascade Mountain Services, a professional contractor with a proper service agreement. Something in her voice, too pleased, too rehearsed, made my instincts twitch. Can I see the contract? Vendor contracts are executive session only. Standard procedure. I'm entitled to review HOA expenditures. Submit a formal records request. She gathered her papers. This meeting is adjourned. Walking out, I noticed a white van in the parking lot. Cascade Mountain Services in fresh vinyl lettering. I had seen that van 3 times in the past week parked in Vivian's driveway. I photographed the license plate. At home, I pulled up Google and searched the Colorado Secretary of State Business Registry. This public record takes 2 minutes. You'd be amazed what people think they're hiding. Cascade Mountain Services, LLC. Owner, Derek Crane. Age 34. Previous profession, pharmaceutical sales. Recent relocation from Connecticut. I clicked his LinkedIn photo. Same eyes as Vivian. Same nose. Same narrow chin. You've got to be kidding me, I said out loud. Marcy looked over my shoulder. That's her nephew. I sat back and let the whole picture come into focus. She had created the Professional Standards Initiative specifically to push me out and funnel HOA money to her own family. The fine wasn't about liability. It was about clearing the board. I logged into my bank account and paid the $500. Immediate transfer. Marcy stared. Why? Because I don't want to lien on our house. And because I'm done fighting nice. The thing about being a third-generation equipment operator is that you learn patience. You don't force a stuck engine. You don't rush a frozen hydraulic line. You wait for the right moment. Then you apply pressure exactly where it counts. I sent an email to all 73 homeowners. Subject: important notification regarding snow removal. Body: effective immediately. I am ceasing all volunteer snow removal services for HOA common property. Per board directive. Cascade Mountain Services will handle all future operations. Thank you for 7 great years. Dalton Reeves. Hit send. Went to bed. Slept like a baby. Outside, the wind was already picking up. Another storm in 2 weeks. A big one. I smiled in the dark. January 18th. National Weather Service issued a blizzard warning. 36 to 48 inches predicted over 3 days. The kind of storm that shuts down entire counties. I watched the forecast over breakfast. Marcy glanced at the screen, then at me. You're not going to help. Nope. Cascade Mountain Services has got this. January 19th, the snow started. Big flakes at first, the pretty kind. By midnight, it wasn't pretty anymore. By 10 in the morning on the 20th, 24 inches had accumulated. I stood at my window watching the road disappear. No plow sounds. No engine rumble. Just wind and that peculiar silence that comes when snow swallows everything. At 11, a white van appeared at the bottom of the road. I grabbed my binoculars. Derek Crane climbed out with 2 other guys, maybe 22, 23 years old, wearing Denver Broncos hoodies under their coats. Not exactly mountain winter gear. Derek's truck had a residential plow blade. The kind you use for driveways, not 2-mile mountain roads with 18% grades. They made it 400 yards before the blade hit a frozen rut and snapped clean off. The sound echoed across the valley. Metal screaming. Then silence. Derek stood there looking at his broken plow like it had personally betrayed him. One of the kids kicked the tire. The other pulled out his phone. No service up here in a storm. Sorry about that. 15 minutes later, the van drove back down. Gone. Road 95% buried. That evening, Derek sent an email to the HOA board, which got forwarded to all residents because someone hit reply all instead of just replying to Vivian. Technology, the great equalizer. Equipment malfunction due to unexpected road conditions. Crew will return when storm passes. Not safe to operate currently. Not safe. The same road I had plowed for 7 years in worse storms than this one. That night, the emergency call came. Marcus Flynn, the dialysis patient, had fallen on ice outside his front door trying to clear a path to his car. Possible hip fracture. He needed a hospital. The ambulance tried coming up the mountain. Got stuck 8 miles from the entrance. Fire department tried. Same result. Too much snow, too little clearance. I watched from my window as the helicopter arrived. The sound of rotors cutting through falling snow. The downwash creating its own temporary blizzard. The basket lowering. Marcus strapped in and lifted up, disappearing into the gray sky. Cost of helicopter medical evacuation in Colorado, roughly $31,000. Marcus was on Medicare. They'd cover some, not all. I stood there with my coffee going cold in my hand, watching those lights fade. Marcy came up beside me. This isn't your fault. I know Vivian did this. I know that. But knowing doesn't stop you from feeling like you could have prevented it. Should have prevented it. Would have prevented it. Except for a $500 fine and a president with a designer vest and a family business to feed. The fallout came fast. 12 kids missed school, which triggered a Colorado Education Code provision that most HOAs never encounter. $500 per day per student for failure to guarantee bus access. $6,000 a day the HOA was now on the hook for. 3 families immediately started a recall petition and got 48 signatures in 6 hours. 66% of homeowners. Vivian declared the petition invalid on procedural grounds and announced a special assessment to raise monthly dues 40%. $450 a month becoming $630. People were furious. But fury doesn't clear snow. And Vivian was counting on everyone being too trapped, too tired, and too desperate to fight her properly. Then she made her first real mistake. She sent a community-wide email claiming I had refused multiple requests to help and that my obstruction had created this crisis. I read it 3 times. She had just publicly stated I was capable, available, and equipped to solve the problem she'd created. She had just handed me exactly what I needed. I forwarded it to a folder labeled evidence. Then I texted Marcy. She just gave me everything I need. February brought a smear campaign. Her newsletter arrived in every mailbox on thick cardstock. The expensive kind, claiming my 7 years of plowing had potentially damaged the road surface, requiring estimated spring repairs of $85,000. No engineering report, no inspection, just a number from thin air and a mailing list. She's setting up to sue you, Marcy said at breakfast. Needs a scapegoat for why the reserves are empty. That last part caught my attention. I called Gregory Hammond, the previous HOA treasurer who had been voted out when Vivian's faction took over. We met at a coffee shop. Real coffee this time, not the battery acid from board meetings. He slid a manila folder across the table. I've been waiting for someone to ask about this. Inside, bank statements, budget reports, reserve fund documentation. When Vivian took over 14 months ago, the reserves held $127,000. Current balance, $64,000, $63,000 gone. Where? I asked. Administrative consulting fees. $20,000 paid to Mountain Property Consulting over 4 months, $3,000 monthly. When I questioned it, Vivian said I was overstepping. Then her faction recalled me. I pulled up the Secretary of State registry on my phone right there at the table. Mountain Property Consulting LLC. Owner Vivian Ashford Crane. Gregory's face went pale, then red. She's paying herself. I did the math. $36,000 to herself through her own company, plus Derek's Cascade contract at $12,500 monthly, $87,500 annually. Total in just over a year, $96,000. Drained from reserves that 73 families had been paying into for years. Previous year, the year I plowed for free, total HOA road costs had been $8,200. Salt, gravel, insurance. That was it. She had turned an $8,000 annual operation into a $96,000 personal income stream. But there was more. I pulled the Cascade Certificate of Insurance. Coverage, $500,000. Colorado requirement for commercial snow removal, $1 million minimum. And then I saw the exclusions highlighted in yellow. Policy does not cover operations on grades exceeding 15%. Our road averaged 18%. The steepest sections hit 22. Derek's insurance didn't cover the actual work he was contracted to do. If he had damaged anything or hurt anyone, Cascade wasn't covered. The HOA was liable. Every homeowner personally liable. Vivian had hired her underinsured nephew, paid him with community money, and quietly exposed 73 families to unlimited legal risk. We've got her, Marcy said when I showed her the documents. Not yet. We've got evidence. Evidence doesn't matter if nobody sees it at the right moment. When's the right moment? I looked at the weather forecast. Another major storm predicted March 18th through the 20th. 30 to 38 inches. When she's begging me to save her. When everyone is watching. When she can't spin it. I hired Bill Ortiz, former prosecutor, HOA specialist, on a $2,500 retainer. He reviewed everything. She's trying to scare you silent, he said of the $85,000 liability demand. These claims are fabricated. No engineering report, no evidence, just a number from thin air. He reviewed the financial documents. Textbook self-dealing. But timing matters. Expose her now and she claims administrative oversight, stalls for months. Wait until she's publicly committed to her lies. Let her dig deeper. Next full community meeting is March 15th. Perfect. The weather forecast showed the next major storm building March 18th. I went home and performed full maintenance on my plow truck. Changed oil, checked hydraulics, sharpened the blade, filled the tank. The smell of diesel and cold metal in the garage that evening felt like something specific, familiar, comforting, purposeful. Then, at 2 in the morning on February 10th, a sound woke me up. I pulled on boots and grabbed a flashlight. Outside, 2 tires on my plow truck had been slashed. Clean cuts. Deep. Deliberate. Deputy Martinez came out, took photos, filed a report. The doorbell camera caught a figure. Bundled, face covered, moving fast and then running. That walk, those shoulders, I couldn't prove it. But I knew the way you know your own shadow. I had spare tires. 30 years in the mountains teaches you to keep backups. Truck repaired by noon. I kept the slashed tires, the police report, and the video footage backed up in 3 places. Evidence becomes useful when you least expect it. March 3rd, I started making calls. Rosa Burke first, home from the hospital, hip healing, walker by her door. I brought good coffee. Rosa, I need help organizing a community information session. Not an official HOA meeting. Vivian can't control it. I want to show people what's been happening with their money. She smiled the smile that meant someone was about to learn a hard lesson. I'll make calls. We'll fill the room. Trevor Kowalski next, in his workshop, the smell of sawdust thick enough to taste. I need the old-timers organized. He set down his sandpaper. We're already organized. Been waiting for you to make a move. Amanda Schuster, young mom, PR professional. Her laptop was open before I'd finished my first sentence. I need media coverage. Local news. Maybe Denver. Her eyes lit up. What's the angle? Corrupt HOA president embezzles funds while elderly resident gets airlifted during storm she created. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. I know someone at the Summit County Sentinel. My old roommate is at Channel 7 in Denver. They love mountain drama. This is going to be perfect. This is going to be perfect, I agreed. March 10th. Pine Ridge Town Hall. $200 to rent. 52 residents showed up. 71% of the community. I kept the presentation simple. Facts on a screen. Slide 1. Reserve fund drops from $127,000 to $64,000 in 14 months. Murmurs start. Slide 2. Mountain property consulting payments. $3,000 monthly. Owner Vivian Ashford Crane. Murmurs get louder. Slide 3. Cascade contract. $12,500 monthly plus surcharges. 3 months of actual billing totaling $51,000. Owner Derek Crane, her nephew. Someone yelled, "You've got to be kidding me." Slide 4. Insurance gap. $500,000 in coverage. State requirement of $1 million. Exclusions for grades over 15%. Our road. 18 to 22%. Dead silence. Then everyone talking at once. I let the anger build naturally. 5 minutes later, I held up a hand. Colorado Statute 38-33.3-29. Board members must disclose financial interests in vendors. Failure means personal liability for every dollar paid. I walked them through how to audit their own HOA. Request the reserve study. Compare budgeted versus actual expenses. Check vendor contracts for related parties. Cross-reference board member names with the Secretary of State Business Registry. 2 hours. Costs nothing. That's how we caught her. Trevor stood. Vivian owes us every cent back. $96,000 total plus legal fees. Rosa raised her hand. What do we do? 2 things. Formal recall petition, we need 67%. We've got that here tonight. And second, we document everything when the next storm hits. Make it public. Undeniable. Amanda raised her phone. Channel 7's on standby. Here's what happens, I said. March 18th, storm buries us. Derek doesn't show. Vivian panics. She calls me begging. I get it in writing. I plow while cameras roll. We hand the reporter this evidence file. Don Kowalski stood. Why wait? Expose her now. Because now she can spin it. When she's on camera begging while residents are trapped, she can't spin anything. She can only fail publicly. Rosa spoke quietly, but her voice carried. You've been planning this for weeks. Months. A small smile. Good. Let's bury her. 68 signatures that night. Filed formally the next morning. Election set for April 15th. March 16th. Vivian's white Lexus pulled into my driveway unannounced. She sat in it for a full minute before getting out, gathering courage or rehearsing lines. I opened the door before she could knock and stepped onto the porch, closing it behind me. Dalton, may I come in? No. Morning air cold. Pre-storm chill in the bones. What do you want? She pulled out an envelope. Expensive. Embossed with the HOA logo she'd commissioned herself. I want to resolve our differences. The board has authorized a settlement. $15,000. We rescind all fines. You sign a release of claims and we all move forward. $15,000 to keep quiet about you stealing 96. Her smile tightened. That's a serious accusation. It's a factual statement. Mountain Property Consulting ring a bell? Your nephew's overpriced contract? The insurance gaps you've exposed this community to? I don't know what you think you found. I didn't think. I know. I have 347 pages of HOA financial records, your own documents. The color drained from her face, just slightly. She recovered fast, held the envelope out again. This offer expires Friday. I'm recording this conversation, I said. Not a lie, my doorbell camera had been running since she pulled into the driveway. Colorado is a one-party consent state. So let me be very clear. I'm not signing anything. I'm not taking your money. And I'm not going away. She stood there holding that envelope while the wind picked up around us and blew her perfectly highlighted hair across her face. For just a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not quite fear, but the specific look of someone who has realized they've miscalculated badly. She turned and walked back to her Lexus without another word. That was an attempted bribery, Marcy said from inside. On camera, with a paper trail. She's getting desperate. She's about to get a lot more desperate. March 18th, 6 in the evening. The storm hit exactly on schedule. Snow came in thick curtains, driven sideways by wind that sounded like freight trains in the distance. By midnight, 18 inches. By 6 the next morning, 30. The main road wasn't buried, it was gone. 6-foot drifts carved by wind into smooth, deadly shapes. My phone started ringing at 7. The Hendersons, elderly, out of heating oil. Marcus, dialysis at 2, couldn't miss it. Amanda, school district fines starting again. Every message felt like a weight pressing on my chest. Every instinct I had screamed to fire up the plow and clear the road. But solving it now meant Vivian got away with everything. Meant she'd keep stealing, keep lying, keep putting her interests above 73 families. So I texted back the same thing every time. I'm forbidden from plowing under penalty of fines and legal action. I'm sorry. Call Vivian. By 1 in the afternoon, her tone in the community email had shifted from authoritative to defensive. Board working to secure emergency services. Current contractor unable due to equipment limitations. Equipment limitations she had created. Derek's emergency response email had arrived at 11 that morning. Storm too severe. Earliest mobilization March 21st. Emergency rate 18,500 base plus 450 hourly. 18,500 plus hourly for what I'd clear in 5 hours for diesel costs. 2 in the afternoon. Marcus was helicoptered out again. Second time in 6 weeks. Another $31,000. 3 in the afternoon. A call from an unknown number. Dalton, we need to discuss this. Call back. Vivian. Shaky. I deleted it. 4 in the afternoon. Please. People are suffering. Put the community first. Deleted. 5 o'clock. The HOA line. I answered. Dalton. What do you want, Vivian? I need you to plow the road. I let the silence stretch. Let her hear the wind and my breathing. Did you hear me? You need unauthorized snow removal operations. Same ones you fine me $500 for. Same ones you threatened to sue me over. This is different. How? It's an emergency. Same emergency that happens every winter. Same one I prevented for 7 years. For free. Her voice cracked. What do you want? In writing. Full board authorization. Official letterhead. Signed by all 7 members. My $500 refunded. Fuel reimbursement. Written indemnification. And the board commits to a full public financial review at the next meeting. Open to all homeowners. A long pause. Background voices. Then, fine. All of it. Please clear the road. Email by 8 tonight. 7 signatures. Plow stays parked until I have it. I hung up. Marcy looked up from the papers she'd been grading. She agreed. Desperate people agree to anything. At 7:30, the email arrived. Official letterhead. 7 signatures, including Vivian's. Emergency authorization for snow removal. $500 fine rescinded, described with the phrase that made me actually smile as issued in error. Fuel reimbursement at standard rates. Full indemnification. Comprehensive financial review at the April 15th meeting. Open to all members. I forwarded it to Bill Ortiz. Reply came back in seconds. That's a confession. She admitted wrongful fine and committed to public disclosure. Beautiful work. To Amanda, storm clearance tomorrow, 6 a.m. Tell your media friends. Her reply, Channel 7 crew staging at 5. This is going to be perfect. March 19th, 4:30 in the morning. I was already awake before the alarm. Outside, the storm had stopped. Stars visible between breaking clouds. Temperature dropping. Snow dry and easy to move. Perfect plowing conditions. Marcy was already up. I'm coming. Before I could say she didn't have to, 14 months. I'm watching how this ends. 4:55. Fired up the plow truck. The deep diesel rumble echoed across the silent valley. Headlights cutting the darkness. 5:10. Channel 7 van at the bottom entrance. Camera crew setting up. Reporter checking her microphone in the cold. 5:15. I started plowing. First pass, the blade biting into 34 inches of snow, arcing it off in white fountains that caught the work lights. That grinding roar mixed with the whisper of moving snow felt like coming home after a long time away. Behind me, neighbors began emerging. Bundled in coats, standing in driveways watching. Coffee thermoses. Rosa on her walker. Trevor and his wife. Amanda filming everything. The Hendersons holding hands. Marcus, who had made it back from the hospital, giving a thumbs up from his window. 6:30. First mile cleared. Channel 7 filming from multiple angles. Reporter Sarah Xavier doing her stand-up. Behind me, a Colorado mountain community emerging from a crisis of their HOA's making, as one resident defies a board that fined him for the very help they now desperately need. 7 o'clock. Final pass near Vivian's house. She stood in her driveway, still in her bathrobe, hair uncombed, no makeup. Her spotless white Lexus was buried to the windows. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her, diminished, like the authority she had borrowed from other people had finally been called back in. I stopped, stepped out. The crowd had followed, 40 people lining the road, camera rolling, everyone watching. Vivian. She stared. I walked to her mailbox and pulled out a certified envelope. A demand letter itemized 7 years of volunteer services, $14,200 in costs I had personally covered, plus today's plowing at fair contractor rates. Total, $18,000. Due in 30 days. If the HOA didn't pay, per the signed authorization she had just sent me, she was personally liable. Her hand shook taking it. You can't do this. You authorized me as a contractor last night. Contractors get paid. You wanted professionals. Here's what professionals cost. Sarah Xavier stepped forward. Microphone extended. Miss Ashford Crane. Residents claim you've been paying yourself and your nephew tens of thousands of dollars while this volunteer was being fined. Do you have a response? Vivian went white. Those are private matters. Actually, I said, pulling the evidence folder from under my arm and handing it. Not to Vivian, to the reporter. Their public record. 347 pages obtained through Colorado Open Records Law. Page 178, the Cascade Contract. Page 241, Payments to Mountain Property Consulting LLC, owner Vivian Ashford Crane. Colorado Statute 38-33.3-29 requires disclosure of financial interests. She never disclosed. Personal liability for every dollar. The camera zoomed in on the documents. The crowd noise built. Angry murmurs becoming voices. Voices becoming a collective sound that echoed off the snow. You've been stealing from us. Vivian reached for the folder. That's confidential. Deputy Martinez stepped forward from where he'd been watching by his patrol car. Ma'am, Did you disclose your financial interest to HOA membership? That's private business. That's a no. I'd suggest contacting an attorney. Rosa Burke spoke. Her voice was quiet and 78 years old, and it carried like a bell. Vivian, you're done. Trevor, recall petitions already filed. Election April 15th. You can resign now and save yourself the embarrassment. Vivian looked around. The crowd, the camera, the deputy, the evidence file in a reporter's hands. Me standing calm in front of the truck I'd been driving at 4:30 in the morning for 7 years. Her Lexus buried in the snow she'd counted on someone else to move. She walked inside and slammed the door. The crowd erupted. Applause. Cheers. Sarah Xavier turned back to her camera. A stunning morning in Pinewood Summit, where alleged HOA corruption has been publicly exposed. On a mountain road one resident has been quietly clearing for free for 7 years. I finished the last quarter mile by 8:30, 2.3 miles clear, just like I'd done every storm for 7 years. Because I had. Neighbors brought coffee. Real coffee. Thermoses full. Someone brought muffins. Marcus Flynn shook my hand. Tears in his eyes. You saved us. No, I said. I showed everyone who was hurting you. That's different. The fallout was swift and complete. March 23rd. 3 board members resigned. No quorum. State-appointed interim management took over within 48 hours. March 25th. The Colorado Attorney General's office opened an investigation. We'd copied them on everything. When you hand the state a completed case, they move fast. March 28th. Emergency ballot to all 73 homeowners. Remove Vivian Ashford Crane as president. Results: 89% yes. 65 households. She was done. April 2nd. Forensic audit confirmed $74,300 in improper payments. The HOA filed a civil suit. Full restitution, legal fees, damages. Vivian's attorney offered $50,000 to settle. The interim board refused. We want it all public. They got both. The HOA voted to pay me $18,000 for past services. Check arrived April 8th. I deposited it and donated $5,000 to the volunteer fire department. They had tried to reach us during both storms and couldn't. Least I could do. April 15th, new elections. Rosa Burke ran for president and won unanimously, all 73 votes. Trevor as treasurer. Amanda as secretary. First order of business. Mandatory monthly financial reports posted online for all members. Vendor conflict of interest disclosure requirements. Community vote required for any contract over $10,000. Then they did something I didn't expect. They hired me officially. Fair rate, proper insurance, full transparency, $1,200 per storm, $800 monthly retainer, October through April. Same work I'd been doing. Now properly compensated. Without Vivian's self-dealing and Derek's inflated contract, the HOA saved $68,000 annually. Monthly dues dropped from $450 to $375. $75 back in every household's pocket every month. Vivian moved back to Connecticut before the trial concluded. Judgment in absentia, $98,000. Restitution, penalties, legal fees. Wages garnished. Derek's company filed for bankruptcy. Equipment auctioned. And then something happened that I genuinely didn't see coming. Colorado legislators took notice of what had happened in Pinewood Summit. The following January, they passed the HOA Transparency Act, mandatory online financial disclosure, self-dealing limitations, whistleblower protections built into law. Bill Ortiz called me when it passed. You didn't just save your community, Dalton. You changed the system. December of this year. First major snow. 4 in the morning. I fired up the plow and rolled down Ridgecrest Road. Official contractor logo on the door now. Fair payment. Proper insurance. And something that was harder to put a name on. A community that had looked at itself clearly, seen what it almost became, and decided to be something different. First pass at dawn. Rosa's voice came over the radio. Coffee's ready when you finish. I pulled into her driveway 20 minutes later. Accepted the thermos. Stood in the morning cold watching the sun paint the mountains gold. Steam rising from the cup in my hand. You know what's funny? Rosa said. What? Vivian wanted to professionalize everything. Yeah. Turns out we just needed to professionalize her out. I laughed. A real one, echoing down the road. Smoke from chimneys. Kids waiting for buses. Cars moving freely. Community living and breathing and functioning the way it was always supposed to. Everything Vivian had controlled, we took back. Everything broken, we fixed. Everything stolen, we recovered. The road, that 2.3-mile stretch of steep Colorado switchbacks that started all of this, was clear, safe, ready, just like it should be. I drove home. Marcy was making breakfast. Coffee and bacon through a warm house. How'd it go? Perfect, I said. Everything's perfect. First time in 14 months. I meant every word. Here's what I want to leave you with, because there's something in this story that goes beyond one corrupt HOA president and one mountain road in Colorado. Vivian looked at a man who had been showing up for his community for 7 years and saw someone she could control. She saw the work and assumed it came from weakness. She saw the service and assumed it came from obligation. She saw someone who had never asked to be paid and concluded that he had no power. She was wrong about every single one of those things. The most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest one or the one with the fanciest title or the most expensive letterhead. It's the person who understands exactly what they do, exactly how it works, exactly what it costs to replace, and chooses every single day to simply show up. She found out. $98,000 and a one-way trip back to Connecticut. Know your value. Document everything. Learn your rights. They exist whether you know them or not, and the people trying to take advantage of you are counting on you not knowing. The Secretary of State Business Registry is public record. Your HOA financial documents belong to you. 2 hours and $0 is all it takes to find out who's really running the numbers. And when someone mistakes your patience for weakness, let the next storm do the talking. If the story hit home, share it with someone in your neighborhood who's dealing with their own version of Vivian. Someone who needs to be reminded that knowing the rules changes everything. That showing up consistently is the most powerful thing a person can do. And that the road you've been quietly maintaining for years, it belongs to you too. Subscribe for more stories like this one every single week. See you out there.